President Obama did not explain to the young skulls full of mush today why he opposes school choice for the poorest among them, unlike his own kids. He did not explain that. He did not explain why he wants people to stay in decrepit, broken down, run down school buildings with worthless administration. He did not explain. He said, you got to go out and take responsibility for yourselves. That the theme of his speech, which was not the original intent of the speech, by the way. Original intent of the speech was a dear leader kind of thing, like right out of the pages of the potbelly dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong-il. That's what it was going to be. You got to think about me all the time. You got to write a letter to yourself about how you can help me. And somebody said, no, you can't do that. So they go out with this thing today, which sets up health care tomorrow night. The theme of his speech today was take personal responsibility, which none of his policies encourage. None of his policies even allow it. You want to take care of your own health care? No way. You're going to get a government-mandated health care plan regardless, and you can't do anything about it. You can't assume responsibility for your own health care. You can't assume responsibility for your own job. You can't assume responsibility for your own car. No. You're too stupid to do any of that. So he goes out and tells these kids, you got to take personal responsibility. He never even does that in his own life. Now, here's something Obama said in this speech to the kids. When I was young, my family lived in Indonesia for a few years, and my mother didn't have the money to send me where all the American kids went to school. So she decided to teach me extra lessons herself Monday through Friday at 4:30 in the morning. Now, I wasn't too happy about getting up that early. A lot of times I'd fall asleep right there at the kitchen table. But whenever I would complain, my mother would just give me one of those looks and say, this is no picnic for me either, Buster. Well, a question, why didn't Mr. Obama's mother have the money to send him to the school where all the American kids went? His stepfather worked in Indonesia as a government relations consultant with a big U.S. oil company, Mobil. I mean, that surely was a high-paying job. And if he didn't make enough money, they could have gotten help from Grandmom Toots, who was the vice president of a bank in Hawaii, and who a few years later was able to pay the very high tuition for Obama to attend one of the most expensive private schools in Hawaii. And furthermore, why did Obama's mother have to do these lessons at 4:30 in the morning? She doesn't seem to have had a job at the time. But even if she had, why couldn't she have scheduled these lessons at some other time, such as in the evenings? Wouldn't making a young child get up so early hurt him in school later in the day? This is kind of, I don't believe this for a minute. I'm Abe Lincoln at heart. I'm nothing. I chopped wood over there in Indonesia after I got my 4:30 in the morning school lesson. It's one of these fantasies he throws in there to make his speeches seem a little bit more dramatic. Like his bogus claim that he met Michelle in college. He didn't. Or his claim that he wouldn't have been born if his parents had not marched in Selma. I mean, but it makes the stuff up. It's Clinton-esque. Quick time out. Be right back. Here we have some sound bites from the Obama speech to the young skulls full of mush this afternoon. Arlington, Virginia. Wakefield Haskruel.
Have to yourself. Every single one of you has something that you're good at. Every single one of you has something to offer. And you have a responsibility to yourself to discover what that is. That's the opportunity an education can provide.
Personal responsibility. He does not believe in this. He doesn't even believe it for himself, but none of his agenda items rely on personal responsibility. He would never give this speech to the American people. I want to start with the responsibility you have to yourself. Every single one of you has something that you're good at. Every single one of you has something to offer, and you have a responsibility to yourself to discover what it is. That's the opportunity an education can provide. Great stuff. Great stuff, but that's not what he believes. Here's the next sample.
At the end of the day, the circumstances of your life, what you look like, where you come from, how much money you have, what you've got going on at home, none of that is an excuse for neglecting your homework or having a bad attitude in school. That's no excuse for talking back to your teacher or cutting class or dropping out of school. There is no excuse for not trying.
Now, this is laughable. I'm sorry if this sounds controversial, folks, But no excuses. He was elected by a bunch of whiners who wanted him to take care of them. That's who voted for the guy. Well, and some guilty white people who thought that maybe they could get rid of the nation's racial past by voting for the guy. But he was elected by a bunch of whiners who thought he was going to fix everything. That's why he's in trouble. Everything he's done to fix something has made it worse, and people starting to scratch their heads. Here's the final sample.
This isn't just important for your own life and your own future. What you make of your education will decide nothing less than the future of this country. The future of America depends on you. What you're learning in school today will determine whether we as a nation can meet our greatest challenges in the future.
Well, he doesn't know how right that is because they're not learning the right stuff in school today. They're not being taught about the nation's founding. They're not being taught about the founding principles in most of these schools. They're learning self-esteem and conflict resolution. The future of America depends on you. This is a standard graduation line. Future of America is in your hands. You leave here today, and you alone determine the future. And then, of course, nothing could be further from the truth. But nevertheless, he's out there saying this stuff that is so foreign to his agenda. I mean, let him give this speech to the American people. He never would. It contradicts every aspect of his agenda. I'll tell you this, if Barack Obama really wants to help kids in school, he will cut their parents' taxes, and he'll cut the taxes of their employers. We all know the original lesson plan here was to accompany this speech. The politics of this ploy is now out in the open. He got caught trying to get the NEA union surrogates, the teachers, to begin the process of endearing Obama to the students. All of this going on out there while thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans are losing their jobs or getting their salaries cut. I'm really, really struck by how insincere the whole thing is based on who he is and what his agenda is. He gives a speech of personal responsibility to a bunch of kids, a bunch of school students, that he doesn't believe. There is no personal responsibility in his agenda at all. And I think if he was going to be true to himself, he would have quoted one of his mentors, Frank Marshall Davis. Frank Marshall Davis, a member of the Communist Party in Hawaii, one of Obama's mentors. And he wrote about Frank Marshall Davis in his book, Dreams from My Father. This is on page 41. Finally, he asked me what it was that I expected to get out of college. I told him I didn't know. He shook his big head and he said, well, that's the problem, isn't it? You don't know. You're just like the rest of these young cats out there. All you know is that college is the next thing you're supposed to do. And the people who are old enough to know better, who fought all those years for your right to go to college, they're just so happy to see you in there that they won't tell you the truth, the real price of admission. And what's that? Leaving your race at the door, Barack. That's the price you'll pay for going to college, leaving your people behind. Obama writes, he studied me over the top of his reading glasses. He said, understand something, boy, you're not going to get educated in college. You're going to get trained. They'll train you to want what you don't need. They'll train you to manipulate words so they don't mean anything anymore. They'll train you to forget what it is that you already know. They'll train you so good that you'll start believing what they tell you about equal opportunity and the American way and all that bleep. They'll give you a corner office, and they'll invite you to fancy dinners, and they'll tell you you're a credit to your race until you want to actually start running things. And they'll yank on your chain and let you know that you may be well-trained, well-paid N-word, but you're an N-word just the same. Barack Obama writing the words of his mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, page 41, in his book, Dreams from My Father. Now, this is not a guy who believes what he told these kids in school today. He would have been more true to himself if he would have quoted Frank Marshall. He would have told them, you kids in school here, you're being set up. You're just going to be used. By me. I'm the one setting you up, and I'm the one that's going to use you. I need somebody to pay all these taxes that are going to be recharged when the bill comes due for my program. So I do want you to go out there and get a job, but I don't want you to get too good a job. Just be responsible enough to get one, because I'm going to need you as taxpayers.